offer many exclusive limbs that will be very useful if you should perform the dark arts.
Hey, what's up, fellow gamers? It's BC from A7 Video with my gamer category review for Divinity II, the Dragon Knight Saga on Xbox 360. So, it's really sad when a game with the potential to be great falls short because of poor game design choices. And that's exactly what you're going to get with Divinity II, the Dragon Knight Saga. Here's a game that starts off with all the charm and promise in the world and then spirals into a vortex of increasingly frustrating combat and tedious fetch quests. I want you to know that I purposely did not finish the downloadable content add-on, which is Flames of Vengeance. I did fully complete the main game, which is known as Ego Draconis, but I tapped out with Flames of Vengeance because it was nothing more than a fetch quest simulator with an epic dragon battle tacked on to the end. I just don't have the time or the patience in my life to force myself through crap that isn't fun, and that's exactly what I hope to inspire you to avoid with this review. So let's take a look at what different types of gamers may take away from the Divinity II, the Dragon Knight experience. Bookworms. The Dragon Knight Saga is an RPG, so there's no surprise that the bookworm category applies here for this review. That being said, and with this being a Western RPG, you might automatically think that the story would be neglected while the developers focus on the exploration, the combat, and the stat progression. But surprisingly, Divinity II is mostly well written, well acted, and well presented, at least for the Ego Draconis portion of the game, which again is the main storyline, the main part of the game aside from the DLC. And the story is also mostly well handled in the Flames of Vengeance DLC, but it's viciously overshadowed by the horrendous gameplay and quest structure. But to summarize the plot, you start off as a fledgling dragon slayer, a person who is destined to rid the world of these evil abominations called dragons. A huge plot twist happens right in the beginning of the game, and let's just say, without spoiling anything, that sets you on the path that you'll follow toward the game's end. It's actually a cleverly weaved together tale of betrayal with one heck of a surprising ending. Again, just in the Ego Draconis chapter. But suffice it to say that this is one of the better stories I've encountered in a Western RPG. But that really isn't saying much. Explorers. The Dragon Knight Saga is not a completely open world RPG. So don't think Skyrim here. Think more about large, self-contained maps that allow a decent amount of exploration. In the early stages of play, the Dragon Knight Saga does a great job of rewarding exploration with hidden treasure and enemies to encounter to help you level your character. Unfortunately, you'll feel the game slowly clamping down on your freedom as you progress through the chapters. Eventually, should you choose to ignore my advice to avoid Flames of Vengeance, the exploration will narrow to the small corridors of a boring town where all you have to do is run errands for people who are too lazy to do things for themselves. Also, thanks to a horrible quest management log and map system, be prepared to spend a few hours during your playthrough lost as you try to figure out what you're supposed to do next and where it's supposed to be happening. Action junkies. Ground combat in the Dragon Knight Saga is fast-paced and straightforward. It doesn't deserve any great accolades as it really never gets past the point of just being functional enough to not suck. You'll also find it quite frustrating later in the game when almost every enemy you encounter has the infinite healing spam ability mixed with the ability to render you immobile. I can't count how many fights with regular run-of-the-mill enemies had me screaming at the screen because it took me 5 minutes or more to whittle down their HP to 0 because they could heal faster than I could shoot my arrows. Now, I personally believe that part of my problem there was that I chose to play the game as a ranger, which means I could never really do major damage with my bow and arrow the same way you could like if you get some of the stronger melee attacks in the game. But on the flip side, the Dragon Knight Saga also has a unique aerial combat system. In this system, you'll take dragon form and fight other dragons in a variety of structures ranging from ballistas to magic shooting towers. The dragon combat can be fun, but the flair starts to wear off after 1 or 2 battles as you begin to realize that all the aerial combat situations are basically a rinse and repeat scenario of the first major aerial combat sequences you will encounter in the game. Builders. You guys should know by now that I'm a huge builder when it comes to RPGs. Building characters is by far my favorite thing to do in these types of games. So if you're like me, be prepared to be very disappointed with the Dragon Knight Saga. This game gives you a finite number of monsters to fight to get XP, and quests that are often easy to fail. And this is a big deal because you'll need every drop of XP you can find in order to level properly to beat the final boss in the Ego Draconis chapter. The difficulty in the Dragon Knight Saga relies entirely on handicapping you, the player, by limiting the amount of XP you can find in quests or by killing the finite number of monsters. Also, if you're not extremely focused with your stat and skill points, you'll most certainly find yourself unable to win battles at the end of the game. There is a trainer in the game who can respec you, but it's annoying to play a game in this genre that stifles the fun that comes from basically exploring what you can do with your character and forcing you to pigeonhole your builds. Audiophiles and visualists. Real simple here, folks. The soundtrack in the Dragon Knight Saga, when it's there, is absolutely gorgeous. The visuals, hot garbage. All right, gang, so let's talk bottom line. If you were really itching to play a Western RPG and you feel that you've exhausted the list of Western RPGs that are really available out there for you to play, then I can cautiously recommend that you give Divinity II Ego Draconis a shot. It's not a bad game. It's just that there's other games out there that are better. And if you've been keeping up with the Now Playing series I've been doing for both Divinity 2 and Two Worlds, you know that I believe that Two Worlds is far a better game than Divinity 2, the Dragon Knight Saga. Now, it gets a little bit confusing because there's all these naming conventions. There's Divinity 2 Ego Draconis, there's the Dragon Knight Saga, there's Flames of Vengeance. I'll break it down for you. Ego Draconis is the main game. It's the game that came out first. It's the one that I'm cautiously recommending you. The Dragon Knight Saga is the meshing together of Ego Draconis and a DLC expansion pack called the Flames of Vengeance. The Flames of Vengeance is what I'm really telling you to avoid. So if you can find a copy of Ego Draconis by itself, rock on. Or if you can find a really cheap copy of the Dragon Knight Saga, don't fret, you can play that. Just avoid playing the Flames of Vengeance chapter. All right, folks, and that's really all I have on the matter. If you've played it, by all means, I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you've got questions, I know a lot of you are keeping up with the Now Playing series, which is still ongoing. Just know that the last episode, at the risk of making you stop watching that series, the last episode is actually titled Don't Play This Game. But again, if you're really dying to play a Western RPG and you got nothing else to play, Divinity II Ego Draconis, you could do worse, but you could also do a lot better. That's going to do it. Allow me to tell all of you peace and Godspeed. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here on the next A7 video.
That's way too heavy. Alloy 7.